The Forgotten Origins of New Year's Eve. A gentle journey through time's turning pages. Close your eyes now and let yourself drift backward through the centuries. Tonight, we're going to explore a story that unfolds across 5,000 years. A story about something so familiar you've lived it dozens of times, yet whose origins remain shrouded in the mists of antiquity. This is the story of how humanity learned to mark the passage of time, to celebrate endings and beginnings, and to gather together on one special night each year to welcome the future while bidding farewell to the past. The story of New Year's Eve is not what you might imagine. It doesn't begin with champagne bottles or Times Square or countdown clocks. It begins much earlier, in a place where the night sky was the only clock anyone needed, and where the turning of the year meant the difference between survival and starvation. Let us begin our journey in ancient Mesopotamia, in the land between two rivers, where the first cities rose from the dust of the earth. The first calendars, Babylon and the festival of Enkidu. Picture yourself standing on the banks of the Euphrates River, 4,000 years before our present day. The sun is setting, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose. Around you, the great city of Babylon rises, its walls towering, its streets bustling with merchants and priests, farmers and craftsmen. The air smells of date palms and river water, of bread baking in clay ovens and incense burning in distant temples. You are here in the month the Babylonians call Nisanu, what we would recognize as late March or early April. And something remarkable is about to happen. The city is preparing for Enkidu, a festival that will last 11 days and 11 nights, celebrating the beginning of their new year. But why, you might wonder, did the Babylonians celebrate their new year in spring, rather than in the dead of winter as we do now? The answer lies in something fundamental to their existence: the rhythm of agriculture. The Babylonians were among humanity's first great farmers. Their civilization rose from the soil itself, nourished by the flooding of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. Each year, as winter's chill faded and the first warm breezes stirred the date palm fronds, the rivers would swell with snowmelt from distant mountains. This annual flood deposited rich, dark silt across the floodplains, the gift that made agriculture possible in an otherwise harsh landscape. The flooding marked a true beginning. After the inundation, farmers could plant their crops in the renewed soil. Life began again. And so, quite naturally, this became the moment they chose to mark the turning of the year. During Enkidu, the entire city transformed into a stage for an elaborate cosmic drama. On the first day, priests would recite the Enuma Elish, the Babylonian creation epic, telling how the god Marduk had defeated the primordial chaos monster Tiamat and created the world from her body. This wasn't merely entertainment. The Babylonians believed that by reciting this story at the year's turning, they were actively helping to maintain cosmic order, preventing the universe from sliding back into chaos. Can you imagine the scene? Deep within the great temple of Esagila, priests in elaborate robes would chant by flickering lamplight, their voices echoing off stone walls covered in cuneiform inscriptions. Outside, the streets would fill with processions, musicians playing lyres and drums, dancers moving in patterns that represented the movements of the stars, ordinary citizens dressed in their finest clothes, carrying offerings to the gods. On the fifth day of Enkidu came one of the most extraordinary rituals in human history. The king of Babylon, ruler of the greatest empire in the known world, a man who commanded armies and whose word was law, would be stripped of his crown, his scepter, and his royal regalia. A priest would slap him across the face. Then, the king would kneel before a statue of Marduk and recite a negative confession, swearing that he had not neglected the city, that he had not raised his hand against his subjects, that he had not brought humiliation to Babylon. Only after this ritual humiliation would the king's crown be returned to him, and his kingship renewed for another year. Why would an all-powerful monarch submit to such treatment? Because the Babylonians understood something profound. Time is a great leveler. Each new year was a new beginning, a moment when even kings must account for their actions and be granted permission to continue ruling. The turning of the year was a moment of cosmic renewal, when the slate was wiped clean and the world could begin again. The festival would culminate in a great procession along the processional way, that magnificent street whose walls were covered in blue-glazed bricks, decorated with golden lions and dragons. The statue of Marduk himself would be carried from his temple to a special building outside the city walls, where the sacred marriage ritual would be performed, ensuring fertility for the coming year. And then, on the 11th day, after prayers and feasting and celebration, normal life would resume. But the people would carry forward into the new year the sense that they had participated in something cosmic, that they had helped the gods maintain order in the universe, that they had been part of the great turning of time's wheel. This festival, this Akitu, would continue for nearly 2,000 years, celebrated generation after generation, century after century, long after Babylon's power had faded and its walls had crumbled into dust. Its echoes would ripple forward through time, influencing other cultures, other calendars, other New Year celebrations in ways the Babylonians themselves could never have imagined. But Babylon was not alone in marking the year's turning. All across the ancient world, different peoples were developing their own ways of tracking time, their own festivals of renewal and beginning. Let us drift now across the Mediterranean Sea to the land of Egypt, where another ancient civilization was developing its own relationship with time itself. The Egyptian calendar, when the star rose. The Egyptians were obsessed with time, perhaps more than any other ancient people. They had to be. Their entire civilization depended on understanding and predicting one event, the annual flooding of the Nile River. Unlike the unpredictable floods of Mesopotamia, the Nile's inundation followed a remarkably regular pattern. Each year, in what we would call mid-July, the river would begin to swell. Over the following weeks, it would rise higher and higher, spilling over its banks, covering the narrow strip of farmland on either side of the river with water and nutrient-rich mud. Then slowly, the waters would recede, leaving behind the dark, fertile soil that made Egypt the breadbasket of the ancient world. Everything depended on this flood. Miss it, fail to plan at the right time, and the nation would starve. The pharaohs knew this. The priests knew this. Every farmer along the Nile's banks knew this with the certainty that comes from generations of experience. And so the Egyptians became astronomers. They discovered something remarkable. Just before the Nile began to flood each year, a particular star would appear on the eastern horizon just before dawn, after having been invisible for many weeks. The Greeks would later call this star Sirius, the dog star, the brightest star in the night sky. The Egyptians called it Sopdet, and they considered it the herald of the new year. The heliacal rising of Sirius, its first appearance in the dawn sky after a period of invisibility, became the marker of the Egyptian New Year, and it occurred with extraordinary precision, year after year, century after century. This moment, when the star rose and the river swelled, was Wepet Renpet, the opening of the year. Picture yourself now in ancient Thebes, modern-day Luxor, 3,500 years ago. You're standing on the roof of a mud brick house, looking east toward the horizon in the pre-dawn darkness. The air is cool, the only cool part of the day in Egypt's blazing summer. Around you, other early risers are also watching the horizon. Priests from the great temple complexes, farmers who need to know when to prepare their fields, astronomers who have dedicated their lives to tracking the movements of the heavens. And then there, just above the horizon in the grayish light before sunrise, a pinpoint of brilliant light, Sirius, Sopdet, the star that marks the opening of the year. A murmur runs through the watchers. Some raise their hands in prayer. Others hurry away to spread the news. In the temples, priests will begin the New Year's ceremonies, making offerings to the gods, reciting the ancient texts that ensure the proper order of the cosmos will be maintained for another cycle. The Egyptians developed a calendar based on this astronomical observation, a calendar of 12 months, each containing 30 days, with 5 extra days added at the end. These 5 extra days, which they called the days upon the year, were considered especially dangerous, a time when the boundaries between the ordinary world and the realm of chaos were thin. During these days, people were cautious, avoided risky ventures, made extra offerings to the gods. Then came the first day of the month of Thoth, the real New Year's Day, and life could begin anew. But here's something fascinating. The Egyptian calendar, despite its sophistication, had a problem. Their year was exactly 365 days long, but the true solar year, the time it takes Earth to complete one orbit around the Sun, is roughly 365 1/4 days. This small discrepancy meant that, over centuries, the Egyptian civil calendar would slowly drift out of sync with the seasons. The Egyptians were aware of this. They maintained parallel calendars, the civil calendar used for administrative purposes, and an astronomical calendar based on the actual rising of Sirius. This dual system persisted throughout Egyptian history, right up until the time when Egypt fell under first Greek and then Roman rule. Which brings us to one of history's most significant calendar reforms, and a story that involves murder, politics, and the woman who would become one of history's most legendary figures, Julius Caesar and the calendar of confusion. Let us move forward in time now to the 1st century before the Common Era, to the city of Rome. The Roman Republic is nearing its end, though few people realize it yet. The old system of government is straining under the weight of conquered territories, political corruption, and the ambitions of powerful men. One of those powerful men is Gaius Julius Caesar, general, politician, writer, and soon-to-be dictator of Rome. And Caesar has a problem. Actually, Rome has a problem, and Caesar is one of the few people with the power and inclination to fix it. The Roman calendar is a mess. Rome had inherited a lunar calendar from its earliest days, a system that tried to track the cycles of the moon while also keeping pace with the solar year. Their year originally had only 10 months, beginning in March, which is why September, October, November, and December have names derived from the Latin words for 7, 8, 9, and 10, even though there are 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th months. Later, 2 additional months, Januarius and Februarius, were added at the beginning of the year, but the calendar remained fundamentally flawed. A lunar month is about 29.5 days, and 12 lunar months add up to only 354 days, 11 days short of a solar year. To keep the calendar aligned with the seasons, the Romans would periodically insert an extra month, called mensis intercalaris, after February. But here's where things went terribly wrong. The decision about when to insert this extra month was left to the Pontifex Maximus, the chief priest, and various political officials. And these officials realized they could manipulate the calendar for political advantage. Want to shorten a political opponent's term in office? Don't insert the extra month. Want to extend your own term or delay an important trial? Add extra days. By the time Caesar returned from his conquests in Gaul and Egypt, the Roman calendar was hopelessly out of sync with the seasons. The calendar said it was autumn, but the weather said it was summer. Festivals that were supposed to occur at specific points in the agricultural cycle were happening at completely the wrong times. Something had to be done. Caesar, who was now dictator of Rome, turned to an Egyptian astronomer named Sosigenes of Alexandria. Sosigenes brought with him the accumulated astronomical knowledge of Egypt, a civilization that had been tracking the movements of the heavens for thousands of years. Together, Caesar and Sosigenes devised a radical solution: abandon the lunar calendar entirely and switch to a purely solar calendar. The new calendar would have 12 months of fixed lengths, totaling 365 days. And to account for that extra quarter day each year, every 4 years would have an extra day inserted, what we now call a leap year. But first, they had to fix the accumulated errors. The year 46 BCE, which the Romans would later call the Year of Confusion, was extended to 445 days, including 2 extra intercalary months and additional days, to bring the calendar back into alignment with the seasons. Can you imagine the confusion this must have caused? Imagine living through a year that lasted 15 months, merchants struggling to calculate payments and debts, farmers trying to figure out when to plant, religious officials attempting to schedule traditional festivals. But when the extra days finally ended, the new system began. January 1, 45 BCE became the first day of the first year under the Julian calendar, the calendar that, with minor modifications, we still use today, more than 2,000 years later. Now, you might be wondering, why did Caesar choose January 1 as the start of the year, rather than maintaining the traditional March 1 or choosing some other date? The answer is practical. January 1 was the day when newly elected consuls, the highest magistrates of Rome, traditionally took office. By aligning the calendar year with the political year, Caesar made administrative record-keeping much simpler. It was a decision based on bureaucratic convenience, not astronomy or religion or agriculture. But Caesar himself would not live to see many repetitions of his new calendar. On March 15, 44 BCE, the Ides of March, less than a year and a half after the Julian calendar's implementation, Caesar was assassinated by a group of senators who feared his growing power and his apparent ambitions to become king. The calendar, however, survived, and in one of history's great ironies, the month of Quintilis, the 5th month in the old Roman calendar, was renamed Julius July in Caesar's honor. His successor, Augustus, would later have the 6th month, Sextilis, renamed Augustus August. But the story of our modern New Year's Eve doesn't end with Caesar. In fact, it's about to get much more complicated, because for the next 1,500 years, different parts of the world, even different parts of Christian Europe, would celebrate the new year on different dates, creating a confusing patchwork of calendrical traditions that would take centuries to resolve. The medieval kaleidoscope. When did the year begin? Close your eyes and imagine yourself in medieval Europe, sometime around the year 1200. You're a merchant, and you travel regularly between the great cities of Christendom, Paris, London, Venice, Florence, Barcelona. And you have to keep track of a bewildering array of different New Year's days, because different regions and different cities have different ideas about when the year should begin. In England, for much of the Middle Ages, the year began on March 25, the Feast of the Annunciation, celebrating when the angel Gabriel told Mary she would bear a child. This date had a beautiful symbolic logic. If Jesus was conceived on March 25 and born on December 25, then the year could be seen as beginning with the moment of divine incarnation, when God entered human history. This became known as the Annunciation style, and it was used not just in England but in many parts of France and other regions. But in other parts of Europe, the year began on December 25, Christmas Day. This was the Nativity style, and it was popular in parts of Germany and elsewhere. The logic was similar to the Annunciation style. The year should begin with the moment associated with Christ's arrival, but celebrated the birth rather than the conception. Meanwhile, in Venice and some other Italian city-states, the year began on March 1, hearkening back to the old Roman calendar. In other parts of Italy, particularly in Florence, the year began on March 25, but unlike England, they counted from the Annunciation in the previous year, meaning the Florentine year was 1 year ahead of the English year for part of the year and the same for the rest. And in many places, particularly in France and the Holy Roman Empire, the year began at Easter, a mauvais feast that could fall anywhere between late March and late April, depending on the lunar calendar. This was called the Easter style, and it meant that the date of New Year's Day changed every single year. Can you imagine the chaos this caused? A letter might be dated, the 10th day of February in the year 1215, in one city, but the same day in another city would be the 10th day of February in the year 1214, because they used different New Year dates. Contracts, legal documents, historical records, all had to be carefully interpreted with knowledge of which calendrical style was being used. To make matters even more complicated, many places celebrated not one but multiple New Years. For administrative purposes, they might use one date, for religious purposes, another. And for the common people, there were often traditional celebrations at yet other times of year. In many parts of Europe, the period between December 25 and January 6, the Epiphany, was a time of celebration and misrule. The 12 days of Christmas were a period when the normal rules of society could be temporarily suspended. Servants might be served by their masters. Crustdressung and other inversions of gender norms were tolerated. A lord of misrule might be appointed to preside over chaotic festivities. This was also the period of the Feast of Fools, celebrated particularly in France. On this day, usually around January 1, the lower clergy would elect a mock bishop or pope who would preside over a parody of religious services. Clergy would dress in women's clothing, wear masks, sing obscene songs, eat and drink at the altar, and generally engage in behavior that would normally be considered scandalous or blasphemous. The church authorities were deeply ambivalent about these celebrations. On one hand, they could be seen as safety valves, allowing people to temporarily blow off steam before returning to the serious business of Christian life. On the other hand, they bordered on sacrilege and could easily get out of hand. In 1207, Pope Innocent III issued a decree condemning some of the excesses of these celebrations. But the traditions were deeply rooted, and they continued in various forms for centuries. Now, you might be wondering, with all this confusion, why did January 1 eventually become the standard New Year's Day throughout the Christian world? The answer involves one of history's most famous romances, a navigational crisis, and a remarkably obscure papal bull that most people have never heard of. Let us drift forward in time to the late 15th century, to the court of Spain, where an Italian navigator is about to change the world. Columbus, calendars, and the crisis of time. The year is 1492. Christopher Columbus has just convinced the Spanish monarchs Ferdinand and Isabella to fund his expedition to find a western route to the Indies. On August 3, he sets sail from Palos de la Frontera with 3 ships, the Nunya, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. Columbus is navigating using the tools available to a late 15th century sailor: a compass, an astrolabe or quadrant for measuring the sun's angle and dead reckoning, tracking the ship's direction and speed to estimate position. And he's using a calendar, the Julian calendar, to keep track of time. But there's a problem with the Julian calendar, a problem that's been growing worse for over 1,000 years. Remember when we said that the solar year is about 365¼ days? Well, that's not quite precise. The true length of the solar year is about 365.2422 days. The Julian calendar, with its system of adding a leap day every 4 years, assumed a year of exactly 365.25 days. That difference, 0.0078 days per year, seems tiny, but over centuries it adds up. By the time of Columbus, the Julian calendar had accumulated an error of about 10 days. The spring equinox, which should occur around March 21, was actually occurring around March 11. This might not seem like a huge problem, but it was causing serious difficulties for the church. You see, the date of Easter, the most important festival in the Christian calendar, was calculated based on the spring equinox. Easter is defined as the first Sunday after the first full moon occurring on or after the spring equinox. But if your calendar doesn't accurately reflect when the equinox actually occurs, your calculation of Easter will be wrong. For centuries, various scholars and astronomers had been pointing out this problem. Roger Bacon wrote about it in the 13th century. Pierre Daly discussed it in the early 15th century. But reforming the calendar was an enormous undertaking that required papal authority, and no pope had been willing to tackle the project. Then came Pope Gregory XIII. Gregory was elected pope in 1572, and one of his major concerns was calendar reform. He assembled a commission of astronomers and mathematicians, led by the Jesuit Christopher Clavius and building on proposals by the physician Aloysius Lilius. After years of calculation and debate, they developed a solution. First, they would skip 10 days to bring the calendar back into alignment with the seasons. Second, they would modify the leap year system slightly. Years divisible by 100 would not be leap years, unless they were also divisible by 400. This would make the average calendar year 365.2425 days, very close to the true solar year. In February of 1582, Pope Gregory issued a papal bull called Inter Gravissimas, announcing the calendar reform. The bull specified that October 4, 1582, would be followed immediately by October 15, 1582, erasing 10 days from history, and it specified that the year would uniformly begin on January 1. This last provision is easy to overlook, but it's crucial for our story. Gregory didn't invent the January 1 New Year. As we've seen, it dated back to Julius Caesar. But by officially standardizing it in his bull, Gregory helped establish January 1 as the universal Christian New Year. However, there was a problem. Not everyone accepted the Gregorian calendar. The Catholic countries, Spain, Portugal, Italy, the Catholic German states, adopted it immediately. In those countries, 10 days disappeared from October 1582, and the new year officially began on January 1, 1583. But Protestant countries, which had broken away from the Catholic Church during the Reformation, were deeply suspicious of anything coming from the Pope. England, the Netherlands, the Protestant German states, Scandinavia, all rejected the Gregorian calendar, continuing to use the Julian calendar despite its growing inaccuracy. This created extraordinary confusion. If you traveled from a Catholic country to a Protestant one, you had to adjust your calendar by 10 days. A letter sent from Madrid to London might arrive before it was sent, according to the local calendar. Historical events had different dates depending on whether you were Catholic or Protestant. England didn't adopt the Gregorian calendar until 1752, 170 years after it was introduced. By that time, the discrepancy had grown to 11 days, so Parliament decreed that September 2, 1752, would be followed by September 14, 1752. According to legend, though probably not accurate history, riots broke out with people demanding, "Give us back our 11 days." Russia, under the Orthodox Church, didn't adopt the Gregorian calendar until after the Russian Revolution in 1918. This is why the October Revolution actually happened in November according to the Gregorian calendar. It occurred on October 25, according to the Julian calendar Russia was still using, which corresponded to November 7 on the Gregorian calendar. Greece didn't adopt it until 1923. But despite this slow and uneven adoption, the Gregorian calendar with its January 1 New Year gradually became the global standard, spread by European colonialism and trade. Today, it's the international civil calendar, used for commerce, diplomacy, and communication, even in countries that maintain traditional calendars for religious and cultural purposes. And yet, even as this standardization was happening, the way people actually celebrated New Year's Eve was evolving in unexpected directions, shaped by urban culture, technological change, and the rise of the modern world. The invention of New Year's Eve, from sacred to secular. For most of history, New Year's Day was primarily a religious and communal celebration. People might attend special church services, engage in traditional rituals to bring good luck for the coming year, visit friends and family. But the idea of staying up until midnight specifically to witness the moment the year turned, the celebration we now call New Year's Eve, is surprisingly modern. To understand how New Year's Eve as we know it came to be, we need to travel to cities in the 19th and early 20th centuries, particularly in Europe and North America, as the Industrial Revolution transformed the rhythm of daily life. Picture yourself in New York City on December 31, 1879. The city is dark, lit only by gas lamps that cast flickering pools of light. Most people will be at home or perhaps at church. There are no organized public celebrations, no crowds gathering in public squares. If you're wealthy, you might host or attend a private party. If you're part of the working class, you might be in a tavern, but there's no special countdown, no particular focus on the moment of midnight. New Year's Eve, as a distinct celebration, barely exists. But things are beginning to change. The cities are growing rapidly. New technologies, electric lighting, mass transportation, telegraph and telephone are making cities more connected and more dramatic. And a new urban culture is emerging, one that values public spectacle and collective experience. One of the key factors in the invention of modern New Year's Eve was the development of accurate, publicly visible time. Throughout most of history, most people didn't know exactly what time it was. Clocks existed, but they were expensive and not always accurate. People marked time by the sun, by church bells, by the rhythm of work and meals. But in the 19th century, this changed. Railroads needed standardized time to coordinate schedules. Factories needed to synchronize shifts. And so, beginning in the 1880s, cities began installing public clocks, large, visible timepieces that everyone could see. In New York, one of the most famous early public clocks was on the Western Union Building at Broadway and Dust Street. On December 31, 1904, this clock would be used for one of the first organized public New Year's Eve celebrations in the United States. But before we get to that moment, we need to understand another crucial development: the rise of Times Square. In the late 19th century, the area around 42nd Street and Broadway was known as Lunga Square, a district of carriage manufacturers and stables. But in 1904, the New York Times moved its headquarters to a new skyscraper at the intersection of Broadway, 7th Avenue, and 42nd Street, then the second tallest building in the city. The area was renamed Times Square. To celebrate the opening of the new building, Times owner Adolph Utsch planned an elaborate New Year's Eve celebration. There would be fireworks launched from the building's base, a street festival, and, most novel of all, a lighted ball that would descend from the building's flagpole at midnight, visible to everyone gathered below. Actually, the ball wasn't introduced until 1907, but the fireworks display in 1904-1905 drew a crowd estimated at 200,000 people, an extraordinary number at a time when New York's total population was about 4 million. This celebration did something unprecedented. It created a specific location where people could gather to watch the year turn. It made New Year's Eve a public, urban, collective experience, and it established a template that would be copied around the world. The ball drop became an annual tradition, though it was suspended during World War II due to wartime dim-out regulations. The ball itself has been redesigned several times. The original was made of iron and wood, decorated with 125-watt light bulbs, and weighed 700 pounds. Today's ball is a geodesic sphere 12 feet in diameter, covered in 2,688 Waterford crystal triangles, illuminated by 32,256 LED lights, and weighing 11,875 pounds. But Times Square is only part of the story. All around the world, different cities were developing their own New Year's Eve traditions. In London, crowds began gathering at Trafalgar Square and along the Thames to watch fireworks and hear Big Ben chime at midnight. The tradition of first footing in Scotland, where the first person to enter a home after midnight would bring gifts of coal, salt, and whiskey, took on new significance as people began to synchronize these visits to the exact moment of the new year. In Edinburgh, Hogmanay celebrations grew into a massive street festival that now attracts 150,000 people and lasts for days. In Sydney, Australia, New Year's Eve fireworks over the Harbour Bridge and Opera House have become one of the world's most iconic celebrations, broadcast to over 1 billion people worldwide. In Rio de Janeiro, millions dress in white and gather on Copacabana Beach to honor Yamanya, the goddess of the sea in Afro-Brazilian religions, making offerings of flowers and perfume to the waves. Each city, each culture, adapted the celebration to its own context, creating a global tapestry of New Year's Eve traditions that are recognizably part of a single phenomenon, yet distinctly local. But there's one more technological development we need to discuss, one that fundamentally transformed New Year's Eve: broadcasting. Broadcasting the new year, radio, television, and global midnight. On New Year's Eve, December 31, 1928, something happened that had never occurred before in human history. People in multiple cities, sitting in their own homes, experienced the same New Year's Eve celebration simultaneously. The medium was radio. The occasion was a broadcast by NBC, featuring the popular bandleader Guy Lombardo and his Royal Canadians, playing from the Roosevelt Hotel in Manhattan. Lombardo's sweet, sentimental dance music might seem old-fashioned today, but in 1928, it was the height of modernity. And the idea that you could sit in your living room in Chicago or Philadelphia or Boston and hear live music from a New York City ballroom, transmitted instantaneously through the air, this was thrilling, almost magical. Guy Lombardo's New Year's Eve broadcasts would become a tradition that lasted until his death in 1977. For nearly 5 decades, his rendition of Auld Lang Syne at midnight was how millions of Americans marked the new year. Even people who didn't particularly like his music would tune in, because it became part of the ritual, part of what it meant to celebrate New Year's Eve. Television took this even further. When Dick Clark began hosting New Year's Rockin' Eve in 1972, he brought Times Square into living rooms across America. For the first time, families who couldn't travel to New York could watch the ball drop, could see the crowds, could participate in the countdown from their own homes. Today, we take this for granted. Of course, we can watch celebrations from around the world. Of course, we can see the ball drop in Times Square, fireworks over Sydney Harbor, the countdown at the Brandenburg Gate in Berlin. We're so accustomed to this that we forget how revolutionary it is, how it represents a fundamental change in the nature of celebration itself. For thousands of years, celebration was local and physical. You celebrated with the people in your village, your town, your family. The celebration happened in a specific place, and you had to be there to experience it. Broadcasting changed this. It allowed celebration to be simultaneously local and global, individual and collective. You could be alone in your living room but still part of a massive shared experience. You could watch celebrations in a dozen different time zones, experiencing midnight over and over as it rolled around the planet. This created something unprecedented, a truly global celebration, one that acknowledges our different time zones and local cultures while also affirming our connection to each other. Think about it. New Year's Eve is now the closest thing humanity has to a universal festival. Every culture has its own sacred days, its own traditional celebrations. But New Year's Eve, specifically December 31 to January 1, is celebrated across nearly all of the world's cultures, at least in some form. Yes, many cultures maintain traditional New Year celebrations at other times. Chinese New Year, Nowruz, Persian New Year, Rosh Hashanah, Jewish New Year, Diwali, which marks the new year in some Hindu traditions, Songkran, Thai New Year, and many others. These festivals remain vitally important, and they often involve more elaborate rituals and deeper cultural meanings than the December 31 celebration. But the Gregorian calendar's New Year has become a layer added on top of these traditional celebrations, not replacing them but existing alongside them. It's the new year of international commerce, of diplomatic calendars, of global communication, and its celebration has taken on a life of its own, blending elements from many cultures into something new. The psychology of midnight, why we count down. Let's slow down now and think about something curious, the countdown. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, Happy New Year. Why do we do this? Why has counting backward from 10 become such a central part of New Year's Eve celebrations worldwide? The countdown is actually a relatively recent invention, popularized by the space age. The dramatic countdowns before rocket launches in the 1950s and 1960s captured public imagination and created a template for marking significant moments. Before this, people might ring bells or sound horns at midnight, but the synchronized collective countdown, everyone chanting the numbers together, is largely a post-World War II phenomenon. But it serves a deep psychological purpose. The countdown creates anticipation. It focuses attention. It transforms a single instant, the moment of midnight, into an extended experience. Those 10 seconds become stretched, magnified, heavy with meaning. And then at 0, there's release. Cheers, embraces, kisses, fireworks. The tension breaks into celebration. This pattern, building anticipation and then releasing it, is fundamental to human ritual. We see it in religious ceremonies, in weddings, in the moment before the birthday candles are blown out. But the New Year's countdown might be its purest modern expression, a moment when millions of people around the world simultaneously experience this arc of tension and release. There's also something profound about experiencing this moment with others. Even if you're watching on television, even if you're alone in your apartment, the countdown connects you to everyone else who's counting down. For a few seconds, strangers across a city, across the world, are united in a shared action, a shared attention to this one moment. In a fragmented, individualistic modern world, these moments of collective experience are rare and precious. New Year's Eve offers one of the few times when society as a whole pauses, reflects, and then steps forward together into the future. Auld Lang Syne, the song that conquered the world. There's one more element of New Year's Eve that deserves attention, the music. After the countdown, after the cheers and embraces, there's usually a song. You probably know the melody even if you're not quite sure of all the words. It's Auld Lang Syne, and its story is as fascinating as New Year's Eve itself. The song is old, very old. Its title is Scots, meaning old long since, or more poetically, days gone by. The lyrics were collected by the Scottish poet Robert Burns in 1788, though Burns himself noted that they were based on older verses he had heard sung. The melody is even older, appearing in various forms throughout Scottish folk tradition. The lyrics, at least in Burns's version, are about friendship, memory, and the bonds that persist despite time and distance. Should auld acquaintance be forgot and never brought to mind? Should auld acquaintance be forgot and days of Auld Lang Syne? In other words, should old friends be forgotten? Should we never think of old times? Of course not, and so we'll drink a toast to friendship and to days gone by. It's a song about memory and continuity, about honoring the past while moving into the future, which makes it perfect for New Year's Eve, that liminal moment when we stand between what has been and what will be. But how did a Scottish folk song become the universal anthem of New Year's Eve? The answer involves several factors. The song was popularized in the 19th century, spread by Scottish immigrants who carried it around the English-speaking world. It became associated with farewells and endings. It was often sung at the close of gatherings, at graduation ceremonies, at the end of meetings. The connection to New Year's Eve specifically seems to have solidified in the early 20th century. Guy Lombardo's broadcasts played a crucial role here. His rendition became the definitive version for millions of Americans, and from America, the tradition spread globally. Today, Auld Lang Syne is sung not just in English-speaking countries but around the world, often in translation. In Japan, a similar melody with different words called Hataru no Hikari, Light of the Fireflies, is played at the close of business each day in many stores and at the end of graduation ceremonies. In Korea, Auld Lang Syne is known as Kosukpyeru Haenus, Kochung Inus, the feeling of farewell, and is widely recognized. The melody has been adapted into numerous languages and cultural contexts. But here's something interesting. Most people don't actually know all the words. At New Year's Eve parties around the world, you'll see people enthusiastically singing, "Should Auld Acquaintance Be Forgot?" and then sort of mumbling through the rest, getting louder again at "For Auld Lang Syne, my dear, for Auld Lang Syne," before trailing off again. And yet, this doesn't matter. The function of the song isn't really about the specific words. It's about the act of singing together, of linking arms and swaying, of marking this moment collectively. The melody itself has become a kind of global language, one that everyone recognizes and everyone can participate in, even if imperfectly. There's something deeply moving about this, about how a song written by a Scottish poet in the 18th century, drawing on folk traditions even older, has become the way humanity sings its way into each new year. Resolutions and renewal, the modern ritual of self-transformation. As midnight approaches on New Year's Eve, many people engage in another modern ritual, making New Year's resolutions. This practice has ancient roots. The Babylonians during Enkidu would make promises to the gods to return borrowed items and repay debts. The Romans would offer sacrifices to Janus, the two-faced god of beginnings and endings, and make promises of good conduct for the coming year. Medieval knights would renew their chivalric vows at the end of the Christmas season. But the modern form of New Year's resolutions, personal commitments to self-improvement, often focused on health, finances, relationships, or career, is a relatively recent development, emerging in the 19th and 20th centuries alongside the rise of individualism and the idea that people can and should actively work to transform themselves. Studies suggest that about 40% of Americans make New Year's resolutions each year. The most common: exercise more, lose weight, save money, eat healthier, learn a new skill or hobby. And studies also suggest that most resolutions fail. Estimates vary, but research indicates that somewhere between 80% and 92% of New Year's resolutions are abandoned, most within the first month. Why do we keep making them if they so rarely succeed? Perhaps because the act of making a resolution, regardless of the outcome, serves an important psychological function. It's a way of asserting agency, of believing that we can change, that the future is not simply a repetition of the past. The new year provides a symbolic fresh start, what psychologists call a temporal landmark, a point in time that creates a mental boundary between the old self and the potential new self. Making a resolution is an act of hope, and even if the specific resolution fails, even if the gym membership goes unused by February, even if the diet is abandoned, even if we don't learn that new language, the act itself affirms something important, that we believe in possibility, in growth, in becoming better versions of ourselves. This might be New Year's Eve's deepest function in modern secular society. In an age where many people don't participate in religious rituals of renewal and redemption, New Year's Eve offers a culturally sanctioned moment for reflection, for taking stock of our lives, for imagining alternatives. The countdown, the champagne, the fireworks, these are the outward forms. But underneath them is something more profound, a collective ritual of ending and beginning, of acknowledging time's passage while asserting our ability to shape our own future. New Years around the world, 12 grapes, 7 waves, and a suitcase. While the Gregorian calendar's new year has become global, different cultures have adapted the celebration to their own traditions, creating a rich variety of local customs. In Spain and many Latin American countries, people eat 12 grapes at midnight, one for each chime of the clock, making a wish for each month of the coming year. This tradition supposedly began in 1909 when grape growers in Alicante had a surplus harvest and needed to sell their excess grapes. Clever marketing transformed a commercial concern into a beloved national tradition. In Brazil, particularly in Rio de Janeiro, millions gather on Copacabana Beach dressed in white, the color of peace and renewal. At midnight, they jump over 7 waves, making a wish for each wave, and throw flowers into the ocean as offerings to Iemanjá, the goddess of the sea. This blends African religious traditions, brought by enslaved people during the colonial period, indigenous Brazilian customs, and Catholic symbolism into a unique celebration that is distinctly Brazilian. In Colombia, Ecuador, and parts of Peru, people create large dolls or effigies called unwind, Old Year, representing the year that's ending or sometimes unpopular politicians. These are filled with firecrackers and burned at midnight, symbolically destroying the old year to make way for the new. In Scotland, Hogmanay celebrations include Fust's-tongue. This first person to enter a home after midnight, ideally a tall, dark-haired man, should bring gifts of coal, salt, shortbread, and whiskey to ensure prosperity and warmth for the coming year. In Edinburgh, the celebration includes Sunung, an ancient ceremony involving fire, purification, and the sharing of communal drinks. In the Philippines, it's considered lucky to have round shapes at New Year's, representing coins and prosperity. Families display bowls of exactly 12 different round fruits, wear clothing with polka dots, and some people even carry coins in their pockets and shake them at midnight. In Denmark, people throw plates and glasses against their friends' doors on New Year's Eve. The more broken dishes you find on your doorstep the next morning, the more friends you have. They also jump off chairs at midnight, literally leaping into the new year. In several South American countries, including Colombia, Bolivia, and Peru, there's a tradition of running around the block while carrying an empty suitcase. This is believed to ensure a year filled with travel and adventure. Some people specify running clockwise for planned travel or counterclockwise for spontaneous adventures. In Italy, wearing red underwear on New Year's Eve is supposed to bring good luck and love in the coming year. This tradition has become so popular that stores sell special New Year's underwear, and it has spread to other countries as well. In Japan, Buddhist temples ring their bells 108 times at midnight, once for each of the 108 human sins in Buddhist belief. This ceremony, called Ja no Kun, is meant to cleanse people of the past year's sins and give them a fresh start. Many families also eat tashakashi soba, year-crossing noodles, for longevity, and watch the Kahuka Yatagasan, a televised singing competition that has been a New Year's Eve tradition since 1951. In Greece, people hang an onion on their doors on New Year's Eve as a symbol of rebirth. On New Year's Day, parents wake their children by tapping them on the head with the onion. In Romania and other parts of Eastern Europe, there's a tradition of dancing with a bear costume, originally an actual bear, now thankfully just a costume. This tradition, which predates Christianity, is connected to the idea that the bear symbolizes the death of the old year and the renewal that comes with spring. These diverse traditions reveal something important. While the Gregorian calendar's new year has become global, it hasn't created cultural uniformity. Instead, it has provided a framework within which local creativity and cultural identity can flourish. People have taken this imported celebration and made it their own, infusing it with local meanings, connecting it to existing traditions, adapting it to local values and beliefs. This is how culture works, not through preservation of static traditions, but through constant adaptation, borrowing, transformation, and renewal. New Year's Eve is now both global and local, both modern and ancient, both secular and sacred, depending on where and how it's celebrated. The future of New Year's Eve. As we near the end of our journey through time, let's think about the future. How will people celebrate New Year's Eve 100 years from now, 500 years, 1,000? Some things will likely change. Technology will offer new ways to connect and celebrate. Perhaps virtual reality will allow people to attend multiple New Year's Eve celebrations around the world simultaneously. Perhaps space colonization will create the need for new calendars, new definitions of what a year even means when you're not on Earth. Climate change might transform which traditions are possible. Will there still be massive gatherings of millions of people in city centers? Will fireworks, those beautiful but environmentally problematic bursts of light and sound, be replaced by some new technology? The specific forms will evolve, but something suggests that the core of New Year's Eve will remain, because it serves a deep human need, the need to mark time's passage, to acknowledge endings and beginnings, to gather with others at moments of transition, to hope. As long as humans experience time, as long as we remember the past and anticipate the future, we will need rituals to mark time's turning. The Babylonians needed this 4,000 years ago. The Romans needed it. Medieval Europeans needed it. We need it today, and our descendants will need it tomorrow. New Year's Eve has survived and adapted through 5 millennia of human history. It has traveled from Babylon to Rome, from medieval Europe to the modern world, from local celebrations to global phenomena. It has been religious and secular, communal and individual, traditional and innovative. And through all these transformations, it has remained essentially what it was at the very beginning, a moment when people pause, reflect, let go of what has been, and turn to face what might be. Midnight approaches, a meditation on time. As we come to the end of our story, imagine yourself once more in that ancient place where our journey began, on the banks of the Euphrates River, 4,000 years ago. The Akata festival is ending. The 11 days of celebration are complete. The king's crown has been restored. The sacred marriage has been performed. The gods have renewed their cosmic order for another year. A farmer stands at the river's edge, watching the water flow past. He thinks about the year ahead, the crops he will plant, the children who depend on him, the countless small hopes and fears that make up a human life. The river flows on as it always has, as it always will. And yet each year is different. Each season brings its own challenges and gifts. Now shift forward through time. A Roman senator, awakened early on the first day of January, performs his morning rituals, offers a sacrifice to Janus, and thinks about the year ahead, the political battles to come, the intrigues of the Senate, the vast machinery of empire that he is part of. Forward again, a medieval peasant in England. On the Feast of the Annunciation, listens to the church bells and thinks about the spring planting that will soon begin, about whether this will be a year of plenty or of hunger, about the mysterious forces that govern life and death. Forward once more. A young woman in New York City on December 31, 1929, dressed in her finest clothes, waits for midnight at a jazz club in Harlem, listening to the music, feeling the pulse of the modern world, excited and a little frightened by the future rushing toward her. And finally here, now, tonight, you reading these words whenever you are, wherever you are, another New Year's Eve approaching, or perhaps having just passed, or happening right now somewhere on the planet. Despite all the differences in time and place, in culture and belief, in technology and knowledge, these people, all of us, share something fundamental. We all stand at the edge of time, looking forward into uncertainty, looking back at what has been, trying to understand our place in the vast river of history. New Year's Eve is the moment when we become most conscious of this, when the arbitrary divisions we've created to organize time become briefly visible, and we stand at the threshold between past and future, aware of time's passage in a way we usually aren't in our daily lives. The countdown begins 10, 9, 8. It's just numbers, just a convention. The Earth's orbit around the sun doesn't care about our calendars, our celebrations, our resolutions. The universe moves on its own schedule, indifferent to our need for meaning, for beginnings and endings, for hope. 7, 6, 5. But we are not indifferent. We are the creatures who mark time, who create calendars, who gather together to watch the year turn. We are the ones who need these moments, these rituals, these shared experiences that connect us to each other and to the long chain of humanity stretching back to those Babylonian priests reciting the Enuma Elish in the flickering lamplight. 4, 3, 2. The future is unknown. It always is. The resolutions we make might fail. The hopes we carry might be disappointed. Time will bring challenges we can't imagine, losses we can't prepare for, changes we can't predict. 1. But also, time will bring surprises, joys, connections, moments of unexpected beauty. Time will bring another chance, another season, another turning of the wheel, because that's what time does. It moves forward, carrying us with it into whatever comes next. 0. Happy New Year. Sleep now as the story ends and begins again, as it always has, as it always will. As long as there are people to watch the stars, to mark the seasons, to gather together at the turning of the year and say to each other, despite everything, despite all the uncertainty and fear and challenges ahead, Happy New Year. May the year ahead be kind to you. May you find what you're looking for. May the river of time carry you gently forward into whatever comes next. Rest now. Sleep. Tomorrow is another day, another year, another chance. But for now, sleep. Let the story settle into your mind like snow falling on a quiet night, softening the edges, blurring the boundaries between past and present, between sleeping and waking, between the old year and the new. Sleep and dream of beginnings.